Mr. Rose, as Ms. Rosenblum already learned, one has to be accountable for writings going back to third grade sometimes. But I want to compliment you. You published an article in December where you had, I think, an important insight. You said a deterrence posture review, as opposed to strictly a nuclear posture review, could help the administration determine the right set of military capabilities and policies, nuclear and non-nuclear, it requires to better deter current and emerging threats in a fiscally sustainable manner. Indeed, if a nuclear weapons are ever used, it will unlikely to be a result of a bolt out of the blue nuclear attack, but the result of the escalation of a conventional conflict. Therefore, the best way to prevent a nuclear war may be by preventing conventional conflict from occurring in the first place. I think that's an important insight. Could you expand a bit on that?
Thank you very much, Senator. You know, when you look at the threat landscape we face, during the Cold War, we were very much concerned about that Soviet first strike. When we look at the current security environment, where we will most likely have a situation where a conflict could go nuclear would be in a regional conflict with a great power like Russia.
And indeed, Russia has articulated a doctrine of the use of tactical nuclear weapons called escalate to de-escalate. They are openly talking about this strategy.
That is correct, Senator.
And therefore, that's a risk that we really need to think about. And as you say, we need to think about deterring conventional conflict as well as the massive nuclear conflict that the doctrine of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s contemplated.
Absolutely, sir.
Ms. Rosenblum, to move on to look at deterrence in another way. My nightmare is nuclear weapons in the hands of terrorists, non-state actors. And the problem is that this whole theory of deterrence that we've been talking about doesn't work with a group of 30 people who would just as soon give their lives up for some abstract cause. Number one, talk to me about how do we keep that from happening, either indigenous development of these weapons by a terrorist group or, more likely, purchase from a rogue state like North Korea.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. It is something I believe appropriately we do need to be concerned about, and is part of the reason that there needs to be emphasis put on securing nuclear materials, civilian nuclear materials throughout the world, particularly as we see the use of nuclear energy as part of the approach to the climate-related issue. And if I may, Senator, one other point, I worry very much also about biological weapons, particularly as—
I should have mentioned that. I put that in almost the same category as nuclear,
Yes,
as we've just learned.
Yes, thank you. And particularly with synthetic biology, which is becoming more and more ubiquitous, it's allowing a much broader range of actors to have those tools in much shorter time frame. And that is something that, if I am confirmed, I will take a very close look at the Department of Defense.
I hope you'll also look at where we're vulnerable in terms of biological weapons. One of my concerns is about our water systems. There are something like 60,000 separate water systems in this country, and the question is, how secure are they? And water systems not only give us drinking water and water we use in our homes, but they cool power plants and enable a lot of other of our activities. So it's not only a question of the risk, but what the downstream, that's a bad pun, I guess, talking about water, but what the downstream effects are. There's something called the Cooperative Threat Reduction Program. Is that something you hope to invigorate, and how much engagement do we have from our allies and indeed other countries around the world that recognize this weapons of mass destruction threat?
Thank you, Senator. The Cooperative Threat Program has been very successful over the past 30 years, and I believe it is very important that the U.S. continue to work with allies to close capacity gaps in the fight against countering weapons of mass destruction. If I am confirmed, I really look forward to digging into a lot more of the detail with respect to how the program is currently operating. And again, if confirmed, I'd welcome an opportunity to come back to talk with you and other members of the committee on how we're doing with the CTR program.
I hope we can do that, because that's a legacy of Sam Nunn, as a matter of fact, Nunn Lugar from years ago, and it's an important one. Well, I look forward to continuing to work with you. I consider the work that you will be doing, assuming you're confirmed, as among the most important jobs in our government. So thank you for your willingness. Thanks to all of you for your willingness to take on these new challenges. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.